Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to the Leadership and Dealership podcast, where we strive to share the latest and greatest trends shaping the automotive industry with today's thought leaders. I'm your host, Don Richards-Boeff. Today is going to be a great one. We have Andrew DiFeo, managing partner for Hyundai of St. Augustine, joining us today. Andrew, thanks so much for being on the show. How are you this morning?
Hey, Don. Thanks for having me. I am doing excellent. So good to be here, part of the podcast.
Awesome. Let's jump in. Your family has a long history in auto. For those guests who haven't come across Andrew before, can you give us some background on how the DiFeo family started and then how you got into the family business?
Sure. So a lot of people in the business have what's called a PhD. Papa has dealership. I actually have a GHD. Grandpa had dealership. My great-grandparents emigrated from Italy and started a bakery in Jersey City, New Jersey. And my grandfather was part of that bakery, but he also, on the side, started to do a little jockeying of used cars here and there between New Jersey and Florida. And in the late 40s, early 50s, had enough money and had enough of a reputation to get his first franchise, which was a Wiley's Jeep franchise. They're not around anymore. But just kind of grew the business from there. I've had father, two uncles, and an aunt all in the business through various decades. So they built the business up quite large in the 70s and 80s, and then had an opportunity to divest some of the businesses. And to date, we have family members involved in 15 dealerships in Connecticut, New Jersey, and Florida, and I'm involved in the Florida dealerships. And my most prized possession or baby that I focus on is Hyundai of St. Augustine. I had the fortunate opportunity to open it in May of 2008, right before the great financial crisis. So I learned a lot during that. And we just moved into our brand new Hyundai facility in December of 2023. So we're about 7 months into it, and so far so good. We were long overdue to move into a new facility to provide the quality facility that to match the quality of the Hyundai vehicles that is really kind of, as everyone knows, taken it to the next level over the last few years. And the team members and our guests are greatly appreciative, and we're excited for what the future holds in our new facility.
Awesome. So you mentioned your grandfather running between New Jersey and Florida. What's the southern connection here? How did y'all plant roots down south from the Northeast?
So that was early on in his life, but later on, most of the dealerships that the DiFeo family was involved in, much like a lot of groups these days, have a operating partner that runs the day-to-day business. And one of the partners, at a relatively young age, had a heart condition where his doctor said, we really would like you to slow down. And we all know kind of how fast-paced the auto business can be. So we started looking around a place to slow down, and Florida happened to be that place in the late 80s. And he went to my grandfather, and they liked the idea too. I think at the time they might have had a condominium or so in West Palm Beach. So that's how they got into the Florida market. And now we have 3 Hyundai stores. One of them is still attached to a Genesis franchise, and as well as a Volkswagen dealership in Florida as well.
Got it. And then how did you get involved? I mean, sure, you're seeing your grandfather, your dad, and others in the business. What was your calling for auto? Was it, Andrew, you're going to do this, or did you come to it a bit more organically and say, I've got the passion for this and I want to jump in?
Well, over in my high school, over the summers, obviously, worked in the family business, started washing cars, working in the parts department, kind of just bouncing around different parts of the dealership. And when I went to college, I liked the car business. I'm not a huge car person as far as, I don't have a garage full of Lamborghinis or anything like that. But I really enjoy the car business. One, because it's an amazing business and just a huge part of the global economy, and really what built, in my opinion, what built the U.S. to where it is today as far as the Industrial Revolution. But also it provides so much to the local communities. And so I kind of had gasoline in my blood. But when I graduated college, I didn't want to come directly into the family business because, you know, you get some stigmas of nepotism and you might just be looked a little upon. And plus, I wanted to kind of learn outside of the retail automotive. So I went to work for Toyota Motor Sales out in Los Angeles. We started in Torrance in their management trainee program, and then got moved down to the Los Angeles regional office. Was there for 5 years. Loved it. Loved Toyota. The leadership is amazing. Got to work with some fantastic dealers, including Longo Toyota, which everybody knows is the biggest Toyota dealership in the world, and was kind of moving up the corporate ladder. And an opportunity in the family business came along in Florida, and I made a decision that if I didn't like the retail business or if I wasn't good at it, I didn't, at least hope I didn't burn a bridge at Toyota where I could go back in some form or fashion. But here we are a little over 20 plus years later. I don't know how good I am at this business, but I really like it. So
yeah, awesome. Well, got to be doing well to make it in Florida, and certainly you guys have, from what I understand, Hyundai's attention as well. So awesome. You talked about a new facility. So you've been in Florida, you said, running Hyundai since '08, financial crisis. I think, was it late 2023, you finished construction, opened up the new facility. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. Kind of started the discussion of the new facility actually right when COVID was starting. A local, well-respected Toyota dealer was moving up to the freeway, and that kind of caught our attention. Hyundai, under the leadership of Jose Munoz and Randy Parker, as well as Chairman Chung, had a vision to kind of upgrade the dealer network in the United States. So they had a facility program alongside our vision of, you know, we really outgrew the facility. It definitely served its purpose when we opened in 2008. But it was an aging facility, and the growth in our county was kind of towards the freeway. So we moved up. It took almost 3 full years, and it was quite costly. If we did this project pre-COVID, probably would have been 30 to almost 50% less. But during COVID, as everybody knew, inflation for labor, parts, materials. But like I said, we're very optimistic based on the first 6 months. Definitely our service business has grown quite considerably. We were over capacity in the previous location, so we're now, as everybody knows, the franchise dealer network loses a good portion of business to the independents, and a lot of that is people have the misconception that it's because of price. It's really not. It's just the independents have the capacity to get you in for an oil change that day, and instead of 4 to 6 weeks for something as simple as an oil change.
Right. What's your utilization? How many bays do you have right now at the store?
So now we went from 8 bays. We're up to 21 bays now. We're growing our technicians. We're having good success with getting in touch with our local vocational schools, as well as some of the other dealers here in St. Augustine, of establishing a relationship with them at the earliest time possible to grow them. We've got some really good master technicians that are acting as mentors to these younger people, both male and female. We have one female technician now, and we'd like to grow that. It's as many people know, it's a great profession. They're no longer mechanics; they're technicians because of the complexity of these vehicles, and they can earn a great living doing something that they really love. Most of our technicians are car buffs, and that's why they're doing it. So
yeah, fantastic. As you think about your market, so you've got a big expansion around service. Obviously, you're driving a lot of profits through that. How many units are you guys? You got like 400-ish on the ground right now. What are your ambitions there in inventory stock? And then What are you trying to hit as far as sales goals? Where are you at today? Where are you trying to go?
Right now we are averaging around 130 to 140 new and 60 to 70 used currently. Long term, we feel that in the midterm, 2 to 3 years, we're going to be about a 300 unit store, selling closer to 200 new, 100 used. And if all goes well, we can continue to grow it. I think this market and my team has 350 to 400. One of the bottlenecks is going to be staffing. Uh, I am not a believer in this 10 to 12 unit per salesperson average. That was established decades and decades ago before the internet existed. And between the internet and social media, we in the month of April did 201 units with 10 salespeople. So I firmly believe that it's an average of about 20 per person. There's going to be your 25 to 30. There's going to be your 12 to 15, but we no longer accept performance over 90 days of anything less than 10. It's nothing personal, but we only have so much room in our showroom for vehicle consultants, and we need to find the best of the best. So that's kind of the benchmark that we've put in. But it's it's a challenging market. Affordability is a big issue. Nobody is asleep at the wheel as far as our competitors go. So we've just got to, what I say is it's tough to compare ourselves to other people. We just have to make sure we're looking at where we were yesterday as individuals, as in a company, and be just a little bit better each day. And so we really focus, we can control the controllables, and let's focus on that versus what's happening with interest rates, what's happening with our competition, with an election, with one brand getting hot, one brand getting not. Let's just focus on what we can control internally.
Awesome. And then when you think about how you were talking about your sales goals per salesperson, do you have a BDC? Are you doing any remote sales? Is it mostly on site?
So we were into remote selling before remote selling was a thing. And surprisingly, not a lot of people took us up on the offer of doing the test drive at home because this was even right around, Carvana's been around for quite some time. So the concept of this test drive at home or buying remotely was starting to be introduced, but what we found was that the customers, it was such a new experience to them, they didn't really quite grasp it just yet. COVID kind of forced everybody's hands to that. But now what we're seeing, surprisingly, is still only 5 to 10% of our transactions are remote. People still like to come to the dealership. Well, I shouldn't say they like to come to the dealership. Well, they like to come to Hyundai of St. Augustine because we try to give a great experience, but they still feel they need to come to the dealership, one, to make sure they're getting the best deal possible, because that's what they always did in the past. To get the best deal, you've got to have that face-to-face interaction. But
negotiate and walk away from the deal. You can't walk away. I'm going to walk back to my living room, I guess, right?
Yeah, and we can talk about one price in a little bit, but and then the other thing is to some people a car is just a car, but they still want to make sure that it fits them, because I'm 5'7", although I think I'm shrinking. I'm 5'6.5" now, but I'm going to stick to the rounding up. I'm 5'7". Pretty much everything can fit me in one form or fashion. But if you're a little bit shorter or a little bit taller or a little bit wider, although I'm getting wide too, you want to sit. You want to be in there and to see if it really fits you. And while we say, look, we've got a 7-day money-back guarantee. If we deliver the vehicle and you just don't like it, bring the vehicle back. I think CarMax at one time was 30 days. They've kind of adjusted that a little bit. Not many, I think in the almost 6, 7, 8 years that we've offered a money-back guarantee, I think it's less than 10 people have actually taken us up on that offer. Like, so it's, for some reason, returning something on Amazon, it's like people do it a lot more than returning an actual vehicle. So they still feel the need to come in. But again, we are trying to do everything we can with our technology providers and our staff to make sure that the option is there for the person that wants to do it from start to finish, never come to the dealership. We're okay with that. One of the reasons is because St. Augustine, Florida is a great place to live, and it's a rapidly growing area, but the population is in the metros, and we want to be able to serve the metro people. I don't mind paying for land that's small town prices, but I still get to draw from the major metros as far as business goes.
When you think about St. Augustine, let's hit that market a little bit for those that aren't familiar. Small beach town. I went to school there and grew up a little bit there. My mom still lives there today. I would say, to your point, growing quickly, but let's think about it. It probably skews a little bit older, right? Maybe a little bit higher income is a beach town, but it's small, right? So you guys have ambitions of growing that volume, and to your point, that's probably not all coming out of 15,000 people in St. Augustine, Florida. So you've got greater St. John's, Duval County, et cetera. What is your strategy for pulling from those metros? You've got the great new facility. You said you're ready to do remote sales, but how do you get more attention from what is a relatively large market down there?
So we've leaned. I've always been an advocate, even back in 2008, of leaning more towards digital advertising. It allows us. There's a lot of benefits as far as reaching a broader audience and at a more cost effectively than, let's say, traditional broadcast television. Although we are starting to look at that too. But also from a tracking perspective, we can really zero in on, okay, here are the zip codes that we do very well in. Let's figure out why we do well there, and if maybe we could kind of shift some marketing dollars to some zip codes, what I like to call the battleground zip codes. It's kind of in between the areas of responsibility, because we want to grow our business, and I don't want to do it just from taking Hyundai deals from other Hyundai dealers, because I want us all to work, to grow the brand. I want to take it from maybe some other manufacturers that we all know. Everybody wants to conquest from Toyota and Honda. It's very difficult to do because Toyota and Honda are great brands, but Hyundai's a great brand too. And our portfolio, 10 years ago was skewed towards sedan, and we kind of missed the SUV boom. But now we've got the SUVs from Venue all the way up to Palisade. Now we've got Santa Cruz, which is kind of getting a little bit into the truck market. And now Hyundai is one of the leading EV producers in the world. And even though we've kind of we've stalled on EV penetration in the United States, like it or not, we're shifting, we're going towards an EV future. How big that future is, I'm not smart enough to tell you. I always go back to what, Toyota kind of thinks the market's going to be around 30%. So we'll get somewhere between, in my opinion, 30 to 50% in the United States. When is another big factor, and I think it's going to be a little bit longer adoption because we really need to build out the charging infrastructure in the United States. And right now in Northeast Florida, unfortunately, we just don't see it quite yet.
Yeah, we'll revisit EV because I'm interested to hear where you think Hyundai's going. I've followed Kia. They're obviously electrifying very, very quickly. I know Hyundai overall has similar ambitions, some great vehicles coming out. I don't know how many folks in St. Augustine are going to buy an Ioniq 5N, but we'll see.
They sold our first one. It was I don't believe they lived in St. Augustine. We had a deposit on that for a couple of months. Amazing vehicle. I did not get a chance to drive it before the customer took delivery, but one of my team members did with the customer, and it's pretty impressive. 600 plus horsepower is awesome.
Baby blue edition that they came out with is very sharp. So let's put the focus back on the dealership itself. What's happening inside? How do you differentiate, right? As a Hyundai dealer, you mentioned Toyota, Honda. We know days on lot is really low for some of those. The demand is there. Everybody coming out of COVID had their challenges with product and just inventory. Seems like those things have leveled out now for most manufacturers. So you're competing on even ground, and now it's all about the experience and service. So how do you start with staff? How do you win hearts and minds of your staff, keep them there, keep them engaged, right? Kind of avoid turnover, which we know is often the challenge in having a great customer experience. So what do you guys do differently at Hyundai of St. Augustine to make sure you keep talent?
Sure. So you're 100% right that this really is, it's been a people business, people and product really. But we have a tagline at our dealership: exceptional service from exceptional people. Okay. I actually changed that. We started with years ago, excellent service from excellent people, but we recognized that as we gave excellent service, people's expectations grew. So now we say that we are exceptional, but saying and doing are two very different things. So we start everything, we think about everything we do from a lens of a consumer, but also from employees, of what type of business do they want to work in, for not a job, but a career. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that we just did in our Hyundai and VW locations in St. Augustine, in some states in the country, they have something called blue laws where they're closed on Sundays. Businesses, car dealerships are closed on Sundays. That is not the case in Florida. So we were open on Sundays since 2008. And while we got business because we were open and maybe a competitor was closed, a friend of mine in the business convinced me, much larger dealership too, that said, Andrew, we sell 600, 700, 800 cars a month and we're closed on Sundays. Trust me, your employees will love it for morale. So June was the first month we closed, and everybody loved it from an employee standpoint. And we really haven't skipped too much of a beat from a business standpoint. And we feel that is going to allow us to maybe recruit a person that wouldn't consider working at a dealership in the sales department that was closed on Sundays. We were never open on service on Sundays, but that's something long-term we can look at. But from a customer perspective, at the end of the day, we don't sell cars or service. We create and maintain really meaningful relationships over the life of our business and that customer. And we don't look at things as a single transaction. We think of it as a long-term relationship that we want to have with the customer, with the customer's friends and families, with our employees, and our community that we serve, because we give a lot back, as many dealers do, give back to their local communities. And we want to be a part of that because it's kind of a flywheel approach. We all win. It's win-win-win for everybody. So we're really more about the relationship than that single transaction.
I know there are certain brands out there when we talk about EV penetration. Obviously, they win lion's share of headlines at times, sometimes because of the product, sometimes because of certain people. But you've got, I consider those lifestyle, right? Those are often lifestyle and transactional, whereas dealership still has the opportunity to drive community, right? As you mentioned, and that long-term relationship, multi-generational. So awesome. How do you see the sales and service process today being impacted by COVID, you talked about the acceleration of remote selling, but what good has come out of that as far as how you approach that customer relationship? And then things are obviously leveling out. We're 4 years out. Is there anything that's harder now, right? Maybe maintaining gross, but what lessons did you learn, and what do you apply that's kind of a permanent lesson from COVID?
I think trying to have like a virtual showroom for both sales and service is something that we're working on, and there's a lot of providers out there that do it from a video perspective. So being able to have this like virtual showroom to where it's not AI generated, it's us. Let's talk, and I can go out and show you the vehicle, or as a technician, I can get under the vehicle and send you a video of why we need to replace this. It's adding a lot of credibility to the process, and creating more trust and likability, because people do business with people that they like, trust, and believe in. And it's one thing to send an email with some text and your picture, but it's another thing, just like we're doing now, to have this type of connection virtually and eventually in person, where you're going to come down and see your mom, and you're going to stop in the dealership just the same as our customers are going to come down and eventually see us. But we've had great success with saying, no, like we are real people that care. My name's Andrew. This is what I look like. Let's have a conversation. Or no, your car really needs brakes. This is what a normal brake pad looks like. This is what yours looks like. And we can do that over video. So it adds trust and credibility to it. I think one of the areas where we're not there just yet, but I know some manufacturers like Ford, and like a Bozard Ford, who happens to be in St. Augustine too, has leaned heavily into mobile service. And I think that is a huge win for the customer, for the brand, and for the dealer. And we want to get there. It's just that we're taking baby steps right now. We're exploring service valet, where we're dropping the car off, picking it up, that type of thing. But actually doing some of the light maintenance at the customer's house or place of business is really where we'd like to go to.
Ed and I were talking the other day, had him on the show, and we dug in on mobile service. It pretty interesting, and as you mentioned, successful area for them. He was mentioning they had started out the year 11 mobile service vehicles. Now they're up to something like 44. So it's pretty amazing. You mentioned that growth just in service demand of going from 8 bays to over 20, right? So clearly you're seeing that demand in service. And it feels like mobile service is just another way to create that relationship, that one-on-one relationship. So
especially look, in certain parts of the country, land is not cheap. It's extremely expensive, and I don't know of too many dealers that haven't built new facilities that have excess capacity in their service departments. So mobile service is definitely a way to address that. Again, we're not changing engines in driveways, but an oil change, a tire rotation, things like that could tie up a bay in your physical footprint. It gives you some flexibility.
A couple of dealers I ran up into up in the New York area, New Jersey area, they had expanded to 24/7 service, hiring overnight technicians. I mean, the demand was so insane, primarily because of density, right? That they were just trying to figure out what are the different ways that we can bring in more customers. And mobile service seems to be the way. As you mentioned, a little bit different than mobile sales, or at least the attach rate that you've seen on mobile sales. But it'll be interesting to see if mobile sales continues to increase as well as people get comfortable. I'd say right now with your big facility, you're hoping people just come in. It sounds like it sounds like they are.
Don, I don't care if they're in person, virtual, whatever. We just want to
push units. Yeah. At the end of the day, you got to pay for the building, pay for the staff.
Yep,
so
we want that. We want to create that relationship, however the guest wants it to be created.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So as we think about, you mentioned EV product. Toyota as some of your main competition. Obviously, Toyota's made some interesting investments and obviously a bit prescient of late with their hybrid strategy. How do you see, especially in the St. Augustine market, where again maybe demographic skews a little bit differently than what we would expect as a standard Hyundai customer? What do you see happening with EV hybrids, even your traditional ICE mix? What are you experiencing on the ground right now? Where do you think it's going for your market? We can we can pretend like we know what's happening in the future across the United States, but I'm curious about St. Augustine and Jacksonville area.
So EVs are really, really great products. They're cool technology, but it's a technology that is tied to a power source that is not readily available we focus specifically in St. Augustine, the charging infrastructure. It's no longer range anxiety. Most of the vehicles now are getting estimated over 300 miles range. It's really charging anxiety, and we've got through the early adopter stage and the people that just like technology, and now we need to sell to the masses. And to sell to the masses, as a consumer, I want to just get in my car and go and not have to worry about on an app like, oh, is this charging station? Where's the charging station? Does this charging station work? Is there a wait for that charging station? Is it in a well-lit place? Is it safe? Like, just go down the line. And it's one thing if we are going, a 10-mile commute every day, and like, yeah, sure, it's great for that. But on longer trips, just like not many people have the luxury of having a second or third vehicle in their house. And not many people have a luxury of actually having a house that has a garage that you can have a charging station in it. So while in theory it will be, and this is a discussion for a different podcast, because I'm of the belief that if you want to do something that is good for the environment, don't buy a car, period, no matter what it's powered off of. I still think that Toyota and strategy of saying we can have a variety of powertrains. There's still some efficiency in internal combustion engine. We've got hybrid, plug-in hybrid, which they're starting to maybe not as great of a solution as they thought. Hydrogen, and then EVs. And then I often say, people that bet big on DVDs never saw streaming coming. So there might be a technology that's 10 years out that we don't even know exists today that might
completely disrupt everything. Yeah.
Can disrupt everything. And look, we built this new facility. Well over $500,000 of it was for EV infrastructure that isn't really getting utilized now. Might be obsolete in a couple of years from the ability to charge some of the newer technologies. So take what we did at a micro level and expand that out to a global level from both a company and a country. There's billions, and maybe from a country, dare I say, trillion of dollars being put behind this. So, but again, people that are much smarter than me are kind of pulling the strings. So.
It's an inevitability, but to your point, DVDs were an inevitability, and here we are today, and it's collector's items more than anything else. So,
yeah, and Hyundai, I'm glad because we go back and again we missed the mark a little bit on the push towards SUV. We're there now on EVs. Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis are market leaders, not followers, with the technology. So if we do get to this, maybe not all EV future, but 50+% EV future, we're positioned very well with competitive products in a lot of different segments. and we are a few months away from the plant in Savannah, Georgia, the Meta plant, with well over a $10 billion investment that can produce over 300,000 EVs. And now there are talks publicly now of looking at how can we also maybe make some hybrids and plug-in hybrids at the plant as well.
So diversification is great, but you mentioned you were somewhat skeptical of plug-in hybrids. And now I'm coming from a major metro, right? Atlanta, and daily commute. Although I don't work remote, so I don't really have to commute that much. But you have a plug-in hybrid that I can go 26 miles on, 24 miles, whatever it is. I think it's great, right? Especially if I have to go up to Nashville for rugby with my son. I throw some gas in there, and I had a single car that solved the problem. Or if I had an EV that was, I'd say probably in that 400-mile range, I'd probably feel pretty safe about it, given the charging infrastructure concerns. But you mentioned some skepticism around plug-in hybrids maybe not being the best solution. So I'm curious, what have you heard there? What's your perspective on that?
So I don't know enough about the technology to make an educated guess on it. And in the state of Florida, even though we get a little people asking about them, we're some of the last dealers to receive plug-in hybrids because they have to go. Right now, Hyundai can only make so many of them, and they have to go to the states where if they don't sell them there, they don't meet certain guidelines. So I consume a lot of information, and my significant other, she accuses me of being a headline reader. And I say, I read headlines.
Aren't we all, Andrew?
Sometimes I'll double click if I really want to learn.
Yeah.
But I'm just seeing more and more headlines about, maybe plug-in hybrids aren't the bridge, and maybe we should just be hybrid or EV. Again, I don't know. You have to be careful about where you read because there's a lot of hidden agendas in journalism.
100%. So, consumer will decide where it wins, whatever product ends up out there. So let's hit on a couple of things. Removing friction from the sales process. You said you'll meet the customer wherever they're at or however they want to be served, online, in store, etc. What is, in your opinion, in observing kind of sales every single day, what are the biggest points of friction still as a shopper, and what do you hope is the next thing that you can pull out as far as a friction point in that sales process?
So one of the biggest things in my opinion, because when we take a step back and look at the transaction, there is the new or used vehicle that they want to buy, but then there is the component of if they have a trade-in, there's what is my vehicle worth? And then sometimes they owe money on it. So there's that gap there. And then what is my ability to transact, my credit profile? And so we're looking at because and again, we all, all the Hyundai dealers, yes, I might have the white one, that you just have red ones. I might have a different, but at the end of the day, it's still the same product there. So now, how can we make a really good experience on the trade appraisal portion of it and then the financing portion of it? So with the trade appraisal, we use a tool. There's a few of them out there that remotely can have the consumer spend a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, but send us pictures of their vehicle and general condition of their vehicle to get a much better idea of what that vehicle is really worth. And are we going to wholesale it, retail it, maybe dealer trade it within our own network so we can give the consumer the best valuable possible for that trade? And I hate industry terms like stealing the trade. I want to get, that's not in our vocabulary. We want to make a fair profit on all sides of the equations. But really provide a great experience for the consumer. So using these tools, the consumers appreciate it because they want to show off their vehicle. They want to get the best, and to do that, we need some data and pictures to see it. So we've got that portion of it there. And then on the lending side, there are tools, soft pulling credit where it's not going to hit, where we can get a general idea and talk to some lenders and find you the best proposal possible. And we hope that that's with Hyundai Motor Finance, because we like doing business with a captive, because the captive finance company cares about where where Don goes to buy their next vehicle. Where if we use a local credit union, while they're very important to the community, they might not care so much if the Don buys another Hyundai. It's so. But again, we want to have a tool to get as much of that information up front, so that when you do come to the dealership, because that's where you feel most comfortable, you're here for 60 to 90 minutes end to end. Like, because for somebody to sell or create 20 relationships a month, that transaction time needs to be short. We can't have 3, 4, 5 hour, transaction times for both guest satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and employee productivity.
So one of the areas you mentioned early on, I'll hit that as part of friction. Payments changing, right? You have one expectation when you're shopping online. You come into the dealership, something changes dramatically. You're dissatisfied. Maybe you're sitting there negotiating longer now. You mentioned one price or single price. Kind of a no markup strategy. How do you approach vehicle pricing and pulling your customers in and negotiating? What's your strategy there to remove friction?
So one price, it is a great conversation, and one that we could probably do the second podcast to this about, but I will. So intellectually, if the whole industry was one price, it would be great. But then you've got the value of the trade, because that could vary. And then if everybody's one price, well, then all of a sudden in St. Augustine, like, why does somebody want to come from Orlando to me? So there's that. What I'll tell you is that we had some experience with one price, in the sense of, during COVID, we didn't mark our cars up over MSRP. We had people flying in from all over the country, because the Palisade was extremely hot at the time, and word got out on some of the forums and on Reddit that we weren't charging over MSRP. And we were like one price. The customer came in, they were like, I hope they don't realize that they're missing out on like $10,000 to $15,000 of extra profit. Like, let's do this transaction very quickly, because they have, and it was a very smooth transaction. So one price does lead to a smooth transaction. It's just getting to that one price that everybody wants. And so now we're in an environment where the supply and demand equation's gotten back to what, pre-COVID levels of, like, we offer a very competitive price up front. And depending on the model, sometimes that's MSRP, sometimes it's invoice. We can't go below invoice. I really don't want to go, because there's minimum advertised standards. However, I can't be one price, because if Don comes in and wants to buy a vehicle off my lot, like you said before, I have 400 vehicles. I pay a lot of interest every month on those vehicles. I tell people I will accept every reasonable offer, and sometimes I will accept an unreasonable offer, depending on the vehicle that you're looking at. And in a true one-price dealership, I don't care if you're Andrew's cousin, Andrew's neighbor, Andrew's best golfing buddy. That's the price, and I can't operate in that environment. However, I know some really, really intelligent dealers that are very successful, that can make one price work. Hats off to them. If I was to start a new business that didn't exist, a new dealership from the ground up, and had to hire employees, I would definitely consider one point of contact, and maybe
no
one
point of contact. Yeah.
But as you can see from my graying hair, I'm getting too old because I've had a friend convert to one point of contact, and he said, Andrew, it took me a year or two. I got there, but it was a painful process. And the older I get, the less pain I try to inflict on myself. Although Brian Benstock said you have to have pain and be uncomfortable to grow, and so I'm getting there, so.
Come on, Andrew. Got to get you on stoicism here, right? All right. Let me ask you one last question. We'll close it out. The future of auto retail and frankly, the present. So marketplaces, another headline thing. We have Amazon and Hyundai made their announcement. We have Car Gurus, Cars.com, Auto Trader, True Car. You've got the Carvana business model, CarMax, the old giant. Everybody has a perspective and frankly now a solution as they head towards online sales. You mentioned remote sales was still a pretty small percentage, but much like EVs, likely an inevitability. So what is your take on how marketplaces will play for a dealership like yourselves as we go forward? Do you fully embrace it? Do you watch it warily? I'm curious what your perspective is.
So why does everybody use Uber? Because they didn't like the taxi experience. The taxis did it to themselves. I mean, I always say, like, we are in this position as an industry because of things that took place in the 70s and 80s and so on and so forth. However, that is changing. Dealers, especially larger dealer groups and people that care, are creating a really, really good experience that in some cases the consumer, they love that dealer or their salesman or their service advisor at that dealership so much, and there's so much trust that they don't need to go to these marketplaces when they're in the market for the next car. And that's kind of what we try to do, is say, look, we've got a Hyundai brand, we've got a Hyundai of St. Augustine brand, but what I really want to do is have all of my employees be the brand, where they're not coming to buy the new Santa Fe. It's, I need a new car or a used car, I've got to go see Don. Or I need work done on my vehicle, I've got to go see Marina, and she just happens to be at Hyundai of St. Augustine. That being said, I am support of marketplaces, because I recognize that there still is some lack of trust. And so you can use these marketplaces that, one, give you trust, give you choice, and also give you kind of, well, I'm looking for the white with beige Palisade calligraphy all-wheel drive. It might not be in my zip code. How far out do I have to go before I then make a decision? Do I really want the white with beige all-wheel drive? Do I really want the Palisade at all? And that's where these marketplaces come into place. So, Amazon, I was, very excited that Hyundai was a first mover with Amazon. It's gotten us great publicity. It hasn't rolled out yet. It will be here shortly. Just like with anything, there'll be some bumps in the road, but there's very smart people at Amazon, smart people at A to Z Sync, who's going to be powering the marketplace, smart people at Hyundai. They'll figure this out. For the consumer, will it be that seamless, frictionless transaction that we get when I have to buy a book? Time will tell, but it is just, again, a function of why do we need Amazon in this? It's because we haven't done it ourselves as an industry. And when I say as an industry, I'm saying OEM, I'm saying dealer, I'm saying technology provider, because we've had a lot of these tools, that can do this. But again, I welcome, competition, in anything is a good thing. And, it's at least got us thinking of, okay, like, maybe we will be on the Amazon platform, maybe we won't as a dealer, because not every dealer will be there. But how can we still create an Amazon-like experience with the current providers that we have? But it's, again, it's exciting. I love that somebody like Amazon would want to get into our space, because that gives me confidence that when you've got multi-billion-dollar public companies still buying car dealerships, very large private dealer groups still buying dealerships and paying a lot of money for them still in 2024. When you've got technology providers like an Amazon wanting to get into our business, that means that we're going to still be around, for the foreseeable future, in my lifetime at least. Yeah. So
making the big investment, dealerships aren't going anywhere. So let's close out for just a rapid fire questions for people that see you in person next time. They'll know a few things about you. This is fully ad hoc. So favorite food?
Favorite food is probably going to be beans and rice.
Beans and rice. All right. We talking like Cuban beans and rice, or just any
I'm
particular?
talking any kind of bean, any kind of rice or grain.
Heck yeah.
Have
All
fun
right.
with it. Use spices. I make my own hot sauce.
Nice.
Have
All
fun
right.
with it.
We'll have to talk about hot sauce. We can do a
Yeah.
podcast just about that.
Uh-huh.
Last movie you saw?
The last movie that I saw, that's a really good question. I don't know what happened. I used to love movies, and for some reason lately, they just haven't been hitting. So I would say the last movie that I can remember that I saw was probably some documentary around health. You and I had a
Yeah.
long
Well,
health
there we go.
conversation. So
You and Ed need to get together because he said he hadn't watched. He said the last movie he watched was probably Titanic. I'm like, oh man.
that's really old. I do want to see Dune and Dune 2, but I missed them in the movie theaters. Again, I used to love going to the movies. That experience has changed,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
I try to wait.
Sure. I mean, we have amazing stuff at home. Last book you read?
The last book I read, I just finished a book called The Four Agreements, which was made very popular, I think, by Oprah Winfrey. And it's probably a book that I'm going to read at least once a year, and I recommend everybody reading it. And I wish everybody in the world lived by the Four Agreements.
Awesome. Awesome. Who are you learning the most from right now?
I would say I'm learning the most from is people in our industry like Ed Roberts, like Brian Benstock, like Liza Borges, like Glenn Lundy, and so many others because of things like this, medias like this, podcasts that are doing these interviews that just really opening my eyes. There's a quote, you don't know what you don't know. And I don't know a lot of things that I'm learning about them. So I appreciate yourself and the team, putting this together. We can never have enough knowledge like this.
Yeah, forever learning. That's the only way. If you take them, I don't know. Your next vacation, where do you want to go?
My next vacation would be I would love to go to like Greece, Spain, Italy, south of France, like on a little cruise down there.
I can't recommend France enough. Italy, Spain, all of that. So that's Greece is definitely on my bucket list. So fantastic. And then last question to close us out: how can our listeners reach you after seeing the podcast?
Sure. So, I mean, my email address is simple: Andrew DiFeo, DIFEO at Hyundai of St. Augustine.org. I am on Twitter as FL Car Guy, I'm not really big on social, Facebook and Instagram, but I don't know. Now that Elon owns Twitter, it's kind of fun. Unfortunately, I'm doing a lot of doom scrolling lately on Twitter.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Andrew, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a great discussion with you, and I'm definitely looking forward to coming down there, visiting your new facility, and catching up again with you soon.
Yeah, honored to be on the podcast, and look forward to seeing you down here in St. Augustine, Don.
Awesome. Thanks so much.